Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. Certainly a challenging time for many of us. Lots going on in our world, but especially the kids, children, dealing with so many different social challenges in school, in their personal lives, in their family lives. And we're going to look at that today and also how they are being supported. And that's with some help from somebody who's spent many years in this area as a district psychologist at Reed Union School District in California. He's seen it all, from the changes that have taken place with social media and on. And we're going to dig into that today. A lot of insight coming your way for parents and those connected to children. This is Good Advice Helps with Dr. Allan Philip Gold. Back on the program. Hey, Allan, how you doing?
Fine, thank you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, wonderful to have you back here. And this is such an important topic because they are our future. And kids today deal with so much. You know, don't want to sound old here, but we didn't have these problems when we were growing up. Some of them, but even things like bullying have taken on a whole new meaning, a whole new feel because of social media and the way that kids interact today. Have you noticed over the years other changes within, the social aspect of what our kids deal with?
Well, certainly in the last 10 to 15 years, what I've noticed is the effects of technology on how kids communicate with each other. Now, granted, they are in school and in person, not counting the pandemic time, but so much of their communication is on telephones now and laptops and computers and social media. And I had to spend so much time just teaching kids how to communicate with each other because kids would post statements that they would never say to each other in person. And I would just spend a lot of, particularly with middle school kids, but even kids a little bit younger, they needed to talk these things out, because when you are posting things on social media, you don't see the other person's reaction. You don't see their nonverbal facial expressions. You don't know how they're reacting, and you say things that you really wouldn't say in person. So taking the time to deconstruct that occupied a good bit of my time. Where I would have the kids who were coming to me and saying so and so is being so mean to me, to really sit down and discuss what was going on between the two of them or the three of them. I recall a number of years ago there were about 9 sixth-grade girls who all were mad at each other, and it was like the end of the school year, and it had been going on for months. And it took an hour and 45 minutes for me to get them all to talk about what really was going on and to try to resolve some of these issues. So I blame social media a lot on that. And it does take a long time to, as I said, to deconstruct what's actually going on and to help kids communicate in respectful ways with each other.
The other challenges I see here, too, within the communication, that it's almost lost, at least the verbal communication, because of social media.
Yes.
A lot of kids don't even know how to talk anymore, right?
Right, that's true. So a lot of what I did over the years, even before social media, I set up a number of different kinds of groups. One of my most popular groups, I think, at least among parents and teachers, was social skills groups. And they would be with kids generally of the same gender, although gender is a difficult issue these days. But, so I'd have a boys group and a girls group at the same grade level. And we would meet weekly for as long as I thought it would benefit the kids. And it would be for an assortment of kids who were identified as having some social skills difficulties. Now, that could be shyness, not knowing how to talk to other kids. It could be impulsivity, kids with ADHD. And I enjoyed having a mixture of kids. The hardest groups were the ones where I'd have maybe 3 or 4 ADHD kids, and trying to just manage them was real difficult. And what I would do with these groups, the first thing I would do on the first day, I would have them fill out what I call my social skills questionnaire. And I listed about 20 different social skills, and I would ask the kids to rate themselves. This is very hard for me, or it's sort of so-so, medium for me, or it's easy for me. And I'll give you some examples of the social skills that I assessed. So asking one other kid to play, joining a group of kids, reading facial expressions, being a good listener, having good eye contact, not talking too much, asking questions, giving compliments, not sticking on the same topic all the time, like for an autistic kid who might, identifying whether somebody is actually interested in what you're talking about, compromising, being flexible, being able to see another kid's point of view, helping out other kids, resolving disagreements, sticking up for other kids, respecting people's space. And it would be very interesting. Now, sometimes kids would rate themselves accurately, other times not. But it was interesting in the group to see how one kid's strength might be another kid's weakness. And we would spend time. Another thing I would do to start out each group after the first session would be for them to say their ups and downs of the week. So an up would be something good that happened, that they felt good about. A down was something that didn't work out. And that would often generate a topic for discussion. But we would have activities like doing expressions for feelings, and one person would be chosen as sort of the actor and get up and say, okay, now you can't say anything, but use your face to express fear, or I'm scared, or to show confusion, or to show annoyance. And it would be very interesting to see first how the actor could express, if they were able to express those feelings, and then if the rest of the group could identify those feelings. So some kids really were able to do that, and other kids not. So we would work on those kind of things. We would, for the kids who were shy, we would set up like these 2 or 3 kids are playing, and see if you can figure out how to join that group. And we'd talk about why people might be afraid to ask other kids if they could play, mostly because they were afraid of being rejected. But, all of these were in-person activities which helped with communication. One that I really liked, a number of years ago, I had a group of 4th grade girls, and they were saying, it was after spring break or something, and they were describing what they did over the break. And one little girl said, it was an awful break. I had to work in my mother's shop, and it was really awful. And then the next person said, I had a wonderful time. I went back east to fun places, and I sort of stopped her, and I said, it's really important to listen to somebody else's statement. And this was very sophisticated for a 9-year-old. I said, I'm glad you had a great time, but can you adjust how you respond to what this other person said? Because you don't want to make that person feel worse. she had a lousy time, you had a wonderful time, but maybe you could have toned it down a little bit so that other person wouldn't have felt, or maybe even responded, I'm sorry, so-and-so, that you didn't have a good time. I had a nice time on my trip, but, so learning those nuances of communication was something that I wanted to help kids learn. And then those kids who were very impulsive, not good listeners, couldn't stop talking, we would work on that. We'd look at, I would teach kids, how do you know somebody's really interested in what you're saying? And, they'd learn that, well, if they're turned around and talking to somebody else, I guess they're not interested in what I'm talking about. So over the weeks, the kids really did enjoy the social skills groups. And I think one thing about groups is it's maybe in a sense less stigmatizing than, I've got to go see the school psychologist,
Oh, yeah. It's like the feeling of going to the principal's office. Because most kids don't know what it feels like. They've never spoken to a psychologist. I think we have a call here. Hi, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, it's Chris. I'm calling from Arizona State University. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. We're on here with Allan Gold. Do you have a question?
Hi, Mr. Dr. Gold. It's Kamara. It's Chris. I was just reaching out to you because they're doing, they're looking. I had a question about how to handle behavioral issues with student and parents.
Okay. Well, the first thing you said is very accurate. It's you want parents to be involved, you want teachers to be involved, and you want the student to be involved. How old is the student you're thinking of?
Well, they're in their teens. They're about 15 and 16.
Okay, so that's a little more complicated. Absolutely, they should be involved, and it takes. And it depends on what the behaviors are, how they're evidencing themselves. If it's like being disruptive in class, being disrespectful, those kind of things. And it could be possible that students like that may have ADHD. I've worked with plenty of younger kids and middle school kids who really couldn't control their behaviors. They weren't trying to be difficult, but I've even had kids as young as 5th grade say, I think I might have ADHD. I'm tired of my teacher getting mad at me all the time. Can you help me? So that's a possibility. The other on the more psychological level rather than a medical level would be to have a discussion with this kid. Maybe not with the parents, maybe just with the counselor or the school psychologist. Hey Joe, you're getting into trouble. What? I'm confused. What's this all about? Is it because the work is very difficult and you're trying to divert yourself and other kids from it? Do you lack the self-confidence in being able to do it? Do you not understand it? Do you not like the teacher? And, because you feel the teacher's mean to you? So there's, a number of different causes for that, but I think what you want to do is to try to identify what's really going on. And that depends on the students having a decent relationship with you, trust you, and you can say, I really care about you. I want you to be successful, but this behavior, what you're doing in class is really kind of getting in the way. And if there's anything I can do to help you, or and who knows, maybe there's something in the family that maybe the parents are getting divorced or something like that. Maybe the kid's taking drugs. Who knows? There's lots and lots of reasons, but our initial job as detective to try to figure out what is the best you can, what's really going on here. And some kids are are really glad to talk, and other kids, particularly teenagers, sometimes they're very private. They don't want to let go. Another possibility of dealing with that is setting up a contract with the kid.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, and having rewards. I mean, I did that often with kids that we suspected of ADHD, or I had assessed and they did have ADHD, but maybe they were in a moderate range, and we would set up a contract to see if they could manage their own behavior if they knew they were going to get a nice reward. And that was also indicative of, if you had a kid, they really wanted to earn the reward, they weren't trying to be bad in class, but even with the reward and the contract, they still couldn't manage their behavior. That would be more evidence that the kid needed medication to deal with the ADHD.
So what we're talking about here
would be helpful.
It kind of leads into something that you very effectively did in the district, and that is create different types of groups. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, I described the social skills group that I did. Mm-hmm. And last time we were talking, I talked about my divorce groups. Those were kind of the two biggest ones. But over time, I would kind of take advantage of conditions that maybe would be useful to have a group. For example, I set up groups for kids whose parents were sick. Now, this wasn't all the time, but I remember for a few years there were a number of kids in middle school whose parents had cancer. And I felt that it would be helpful for them not to feel isolated or alone, and to be able to discuss what they were going through, their concerns and how their responsibilities at home, and so that I felt that was useful. Not all that long, maybe 10 years ago or so, I started groups for kids who had special needs siblings. So kids who were siblings of kids who had learning disabilities, emotional problems, physical problems, and in those families, these kids were, they took second place because all the focus on the of the parents were on the kids with the special needs, and I felt that it would be good for them to listen to other kids in the same boat, and be there for each other, and I found that was very useful. Other groups that I've done, about 8 or 9 years ago, I set up what was called a tea club. And now this was a club, it wasn't a group, but anybody was invited. And it was, T stands for Teach Equity and Acceptance. And this was for middle school students, and we met once a week during lunchtime. And the whole purpose was to discuss differences and to learn about and counteract the discrimination that results from being different. We talked about sort of a hierarchy of responses that exist among human beings, everything from genocide and killing people who are different, all the way up to embracing and valuing differences. So we would spend several weeks talking about racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslimism, ageism, sexism, and then the more invisible differences like learning disabilities, which you don't always see, emotional disabilities. We talked about physical disabilities. So the kids were really involved, and they would discuss. We would see videos of differences. We would. Some of the kids would present. Not podcasts, but PowerPoints to show differences, and we would really work on, how can you be respectful of differences and embrace differences rather than avoid them and hate them and be mean. And then I also did a Gender Sexuality Alliance Club. These were for kids who were questioning their gender identity or their sexual orientation and needed a safe place to be with other similar students or allies, friends of them, to discuss their issues. So those were a lot of the groups. And then the other one, which most school psychologists don't do, but because I had a background in math, 35 years ago I set up a math club once a week for students who were very good at math and wanted some additional challenge. So I would meet with them in the morning once a week and give them challenging math problems and prepare them for local and national contests. And so it was a group, and they could talk to each other, and except when there was a test or something. But so it was a different kind, but I loved working with those kids as well, to give them a chance to be together and to enjoy some challenges.
Love it. You really have been innovative and continue to be, even years later, which is so refreshing. You know, there are a lot of school psychologists out there that truly take it to heart and care, and I'm gratified to know that you are one of them and have made that difference in the lives of so many. Final question, just about out of time, and I'm curious, within the groups that you created, did you find that kind of opened the door to communication? Did they truly felt that much more comfortable that they were among peers that maybe could relate to what they're feeling and what they're sharing?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. In the social skills groups particularly, I could see the kids opening up and sharing more and more of their ups and downs. And, I mean, different kids obviously proceed at a different rate. But, I definitely saw that. Obviously, in the Gender Sexuality Alliance Club, they felt very safe to be able to talk about what they were doing and share things that they hadn't even shared with parents.
Yep.
And of course, when they, like the group for kids with special needs siblings, absolutely. So over time, the first day of groups, they were always very good and quiet, and but then and the divorce group, certainly they would open up. So I would see real communication developing. And to get back to your original question, a lot of kids don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
They might communicate about trivial stuff or gossip and that kind of thing at school, but really communicating their deeper feelings, they don't necessarily do that with each other, and just post. If they're angry at somebody, they post a nasty message, and that has to get worked on.
Sure.
Well, the fact that they join the groups, I believe, is a testament to your connection with the kids. They're definitely not going to sign up for something, then intentionally show up unless they feel comfortable. And it's obviously that you've made them feel comfortable. Allan, Thank you so much today. I want to share with everybody, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. If you're a parent, maybe your child is going through some challenges, even if it's connected with school or not, we'd love to talk about it. It can be anonymous as well, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Once again,
one other thing I
Sure.
should say about the groups is, at least for the social skills groups, I would, unless the conversations lasted the whole 50 minutes or something, I would save at least 10 or 15 minutes to play a game, because it was interesting to see how kids handled winning and losing a game, too. And it was also fun. So I wanted to create a fun atmosphere for the kids while dealing with these serious topics.
Sure. Well, I'm kind of laughing inside because I've shared with you that I'm in a men's group, actually have a meeting tonight. We meet weekly, but as the meeting begins, we do what's called an out of head. And we spend 10 minutes. It could be a card game. It could be something goofy like, football in a parking lot. Last week we played tug of war in the hallway, but you weren't allowed to touch the rope. Go figure that one out. So it just lightens things up and gets you out of your head at that moment. And then it's almost as if you tap areas of your brain that you didn't think you would. Because you walk in thinking, all right, we're going to talk about, if it's a kid in the divorce group, I'm going to talk about divorce. I don't know. I'm feeling uncomfortable. It kind of breaks the ice, essentially.
Yes, indeed.
Allan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here once again. And
okay. Hope I answered the question for University of Arizona students.
Oh, you definitely do. And much more insight there. And we'll get together next time. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.